Hey there, CG Math students. Welcome to class for homework 7.6, area of composite figures, part 2. If you were out of class, you have the completed notes right here. I expect you to make sure you get them down. Basically, what we're doing on the front side is in the left-hand column right over here. We were just working kind of a warm-up on how to do basic perimeter and basic area, right? It's just like yesterday. If I have a nail or a screw, I have to identify that I got to use a hammer or a screwdriver, right? So for a perimeter, here's my tool or formula for the perimeter of a rectangle. I plug in my length, I plug in my width, I do the math, I get my perimeter. Notice the units are regular. For my area, here's my tool, a different tool, right? Base times height. I plug in my base, plug in my height, and I do the math and I get my units squared, 80 feet squared, right? Ignore this column for a moment while we continue on down. Same thing for a parallelogram, same thing for the area and perimeter. For a square, notice we have P equals 2L plus 2W for most of these. For a square, since all the sides are the same, we can just use the perimeter P equals 4S. So I initially wrote P equals 2L plus 2W, crossed off, and just said 4 times S, since every side is the same. So 4 times 5 gives me 20 inches. You can use base times height, 5 times height. 5 equals 25 inches squared, or you could use S squared since the sides are the same, right? So 5 times 5 will still give you 25. For a triangle, notice the perimeter changes. It's just add up the 3 sides, so length plus length plus length. You ignore the stuff on the inside, the height. And the area formula also changes, so it's not just base times height anymore. It's base times height divided by 2. Remember, a triangle is half of a rectangle, so a base of 9, my height of 6, that dotted line is always the height, divided by 2. Trapezoid changes even a little bit more. I had to give you, notice this 8.2 is not written on your paper, I had to give you that length in order for you to find the perimeter, right? The height is the dotted line, your base 1, your base 2, plug it into the formula, divide by 2, you get 48, right? And then for circles, remember circumference is the distance around, so like the perimeter, it's just pi times d, so 3.14 is pi. 8 is your diameter, and if 8 is your diameter, that means 4 is your radius, right? So plug in r 4 for your r in your area formula, pi r squared, so 3.14 times 4 squared gives you your area. When you're working backwards, you'll notice, if we go into this column, I'm giving you an area, right? And then I'm only giving you a base or a height, and I'm asking you to solve for one or the other. So you still write the formula, but this time you're going to get 2 of the letters. So this time you're going to get A, you understand A, and you understand H, but you don't understand B. And what do you have? You have a one-step equation, right? 28 is equal to 7B. 7 times some number gives you 28. So just divide both sides by 7, and you get 4 as your answer. Same thing with the parallelogram, right? I gave you the area of 9. Right, so hence why 9 gets plugged in. I gave you the height of 3, but you don't have your base. So 3 times the base is equal to 9. Divide both sides by 3, you get 3. If you weren't in class, this symbol here is called the square root. To undo something that is squared, such as your side length here, you take the square root of it. So you're basically asking yourself, what number times itself give me 121? It's 11. Hitting second x squared will give you the square root symbol, and then you can type in the number 121 and hit enter on your calculator. Right. For a triangle, notice it gets a little bit more complicated. You know your base of 12, you know your area of 42, you don't know your height, but you know everything's going to be divided by 2. So you multiply both sides by 2, you get 12h equals 84, then it's a one-step equation, divide both sides by 12, so you get 7. For a trapezoid, it becomes even more difficult, right? Your area is 6, you don't know your height, but you know your bases, so you plug them in. When you add your bases together, you get 6. So 6 is equal to h times 6 over 2. Multiply both sides by 2, you get 12 is equal to 6h. Divide both sides by 6, so you get 2. And for your area, again, plug in 153.9 for A, because that's what your area is. 3.14 for pi. You don't know what r is, but you start off by dividing both sides by 3.14. That gives you 49.01 when you divide these two numbers. And then to figure out what r squared is, just like you did with a square, take the square root of it. Anything squared, to undo that, you take the square root of it. Just like if we had multiplication, to undo that, we divide. If we have division, to undo that, we multiply. So to undo something squared, we take the square root. On the back side, you've got problems that are related to composite figures. So just like you did in the previous night, draw some lines to decompose these figures, figure out, oh, hey, I've got a rectangle, and I've got a triangle. Once you have that, you're going to want to go ahead and write down what your formula is. A is equal to BH, A is equal to, base times height divided by 2. Then you plug in, A is equal to 30 times 20. A is equal to 30, your base of your triangle, times your height of your triangle, which is actually 8, times 8 over 2, right? You're going to do the math, you're going to add, but in this case, you won't be done because it's asking you for how many gallons of paint are needed to complete a job. The gallon covers 250 square feet. So in all of these problems, you're not just finding areas and adding them together or subtracting, you're actually going to do some more information with that, all right? In this problem, it's going to be helpful to draw the picture, right? To say, hey, if I've got a room that is 14 by 12 and a hallway that is 8 by 3, right? Hopefully you can draw a little bit better than me. And I want to find the total area for the carpet that I need to order. You should be able to work that. For this problem, if you got a barn wall that you want to paint, but if you got a wall that you want to wallpaper, but you do not want to wallpaper the door, this becomes one of those problems where it's like, hey, I got the area of the rectangle, I got another rectangle, but I want to find the area without the shaded region, right? You want to do some subtracting. But you won't be done after that because each roll of wallpaper covers 160 square feet. You might need more than one roll, and each roll is $19.85. They want to figure out what your answer is going to be a dollar amount. What's the cost for wallpaper? And the last one, you've got this track here. If you divide it up, you should recognize that I've got a rectangle on the inside here, base of 100, height of 50, and I got 2 semicircles on the outside, right? You know the equation for a semicircle. You also know that 2 semicircles together are a circle, so you might not even need 3 shapes. You might just say rectangle and circle. Think about if this is 50 feet across in your diameter, so if your diameter is 50 feet, think about what your radius is going to be equal, because that's what you're going to need for either the circle formula or the semicircle formula if you choose to use that. Also, please make sure you use 3 for pi. That's it. Call me for questions.